This video on FPL TV is very proudly sponsored by OneFootball. With a rating of 4.8 out of 5 from now over 100,000 reviews on the App Store, OneFootball truly is the biggest and best app for football news, scores and stats from hundreds of leagues all over the world. As for FPL, you can choose to follow every team in the Premier League on OneFootball and then get live updates from all the goals and assists every game week. Download it now completely free using the link in the description box below. Hey guys, and welcome back to FPL TV. With the busy Christmas schedule now in full swing, there's yet another beautiful weekend of Premier League football just around the corner, and with that, another FPL game week. Rejoice. So let's first see how my side performed in midweek, before then talking about some potential transfer moves for the imminent Game Week 15. After much deliberation last game week, in the end I opted to sell Harry Kane before that favourable home fixture against Brentford. It wasn't an easy decision and it could have easily backfired, but ultimately after game weeks of disappointment and with Alexander-Arnold continually racking up huge points on a weekly basis, I felt I had to finally make that switch and bring Trent back in. In typical FPL TV fashion, the transfer was as always timed absolutely plumb, with Alexander-Arnold of course blanking the week that I brought him back. But no, to be fair, he's so heavily owned now anyway, the points from him don't actually help me with my overall ranking, and if anything, I just wanted him back mainly as damage control, because in my opinion he's simply too good to go without. Despite the blank, I'm very happy to have him back in the side now, and to my delight, Harry Kane blanked at home to Brentford anyway. What this move did help me do though, is then provide enough funds in the bank to upgrade Saka to Diogo Jota for a -4 hit, and that move did pay off, with Jota netting a very well taken goal against Everton. As for my Kane replacement, I opted in the end for Joshua King, who should serve me well as a handy budget option over the busy Christmas schedule. In my last video, it was his teammate Dennis that I spoke about transferring in, but shortly before the game week began, he was listed as a 50% injury concern, and it was therefore very difficult to justify that transfer. That did end in a bit of frustration, because Dennis did prove fit and scored once again, delivering a 9-pointer against Chelsea, so 7 points dropped there. However, when making that decision, I did too have the African Cup of Nations in mind, and should Dennis get called up for that tournament, then at least I won't have that transfer headache when it comes to Joshua King. King has also been posting some very impressive underlying numbers in recent game weeks, and is on penalties too, so hopefully he can still prove to be a decent purchase. To be honest, it wasn't my intention to field Joshua King or Dennis this game week anyway, but being sat first on my bench, in he came for the injured Reece James who missed out. Another small positive with that Harry Kane transfer is that I chose to keep Son over him, and although the result of that wasn't extremely fruitful, Son did score in that win over Brentford and picked up a handy 8-pointer. Very unlucky not to get any bonus points, I might add. In terms of outfield players, my points all came from midfield in Game Week 14, with Rafinha also scoring that last-minute penalty against Palace, a penalty I was surprised but very delighted to see him take. As for the rest of my squad, it was blanks all round, except for Jose Sarr in goal, who has now kept a very pleasing 3 clean sheets on the bounce. Wolves now head into a horrendous run of difficult fixtures, where in just the next 4 game weeks they face Liverpool, Man City and Chelsea, so that may be his last game week in my side, and if he is to depart, then thank you Sarr, you'll certainly be leaving on a positive. His teammate Raul Jimenez is also at risk of departing my side this week, but unfortunately he won't be leaving on such good terms, having blanked in back-to-back fixtures against Norwich and Burnley. It's not particularly been his fault though, and that was epitomised by Traoré not squaring the ball to him against Burnley for an easy tap-in. Wolves are simply not creating enough this season and are currently the league's second lowest scorers, with only Norwich managing less goals. So for Game Week 14, it was a score of 72 in the end, but of course with that -4 hit taken, therefore 68 essentially. A very respectable score and one that I'm happy with. It's just a shame that a decent score such as this didn't provide much progress in terms of ranking. On the positive, it was still a green arrow, albeit a very small one of 10,000 places, but I think any green arrow is always a good thing, especially when taking a -4 hit during that game week. Ultimately, with the moves I made last week, I'm a lot more happy with the look of my squad now, and also very content to have both Jota and Trent back in the mix, players I didn't want to be without for the Christmas run-in. I also have 1.6 million in the bank now, so a bit more flexibility when it comes to making some transfers. With that, let's move on to Game Week 15 now, and look at how the side currently lines up, as well as talking about some potential transfer moves. Also, if you do enjoy the content here at FPL TV, then please consider leaving a like and most importantly getting subscribed. You can also hit the notification bell so you always know when a new video goes live. Heading into this weekend's Game Week 15, as mentioned, on the whole, I'm happy with how the squad is now shaping up. And although I'd love to make a more luxury transfer this week, such as Rudiger to Marcos Alonso for example, it's probably the Wolves assets that I'm going to have to address first, who have that dreadful run of games coming up. Both Son and Rafinha are two others that I don't consider to be long-term options anymore, with neither team looking at their best, and with Leeds, like Wolves, having a very difficult run of fixtures over Christmas. However, this game week, with two nice home fixtures against Brentford and Norwich respectively, it doesn't feel necessary to move them on just yet. For his price, Rafinha has been an excellent mid-priced option in fairness, but with 1.6 million now in the bank, that does give me enough to upgrade him to a City midfielder like Bernardo Silva, and that's something I may look to do in a future game week. Now, in terms of replacing my Wolves assets, when I wildcarded in Jose Sa at a cost of 5 million back in Game Week 7, even back then, I looked at the fixtures and saw that in Game Week 15, this game week, the timing of swapping him for David De Gea looked absolutely perfect on paper. Granted, since then and throughout the season in general, United have looked very poor defensively, but their fixture run now, all the way until Game Week 28, looks absolutely unreal. The timing of this transfer also coincides nicely with their new manager Ranić now taking over, and surely his first point of call will be to get them more organised defensively. Will De Gea end up being a poor transfer in? Well, it certainly has the potential to be, but at the very least, he does provide me with a nice differential rather than opting for the more popularly owned Aaron Ramsdale. The way I see it, in just the next 7 game weeks, Jose Sa will face the likes of Liverpool, Man City, Chelsea, Arsenal, United, whilst De Gea will face the likes of Palace, Norwich, Brentford, Newcastle and Burnley. So surely, probability-wise, De Gea has to come out on top over Sa during that run. I need some more time to mull it over, but that's most likely the free transfer that I'm set to make this game week. Alternatively, if I were to replace Raul Jimenez instead this week, then for Game Week 15 particularly, it's probably Ollie Watkins that I'm most interested to bring in, who looks to be a nice differential as well. Since being appointed, Gerrard is really starting to get a tune out of Villa so far, and the Villains too do have some very nice upcoming fixtures. This week they face Leicester at home, who only have one single clean sheet to their name so far this season, and that was all the way back in Game Week 1, therefore a great chance for Watkins to get a goal here surely. What I also do like about Watkins is that he's a solid 90-minute man with superb fitness, which over the very busy Christmas schedule can come in very handy. Although I like the look of Watkins as a differential, especially this week, I'm just a bit unsure that I really trust him to be a reliable source of goals, and I don't consider him to be an explosive option, so that's holding me back. What I'm leaning towards doing is keeping Raul Jimenez for this game week, and then looking to sell him in Game Week 16 instead, when a few more options become available. In Game Week 16 I have a bit more flexibility with my options, because Michail Antonio could then come back onto the menu, with West Ham's fixture run looking much better from Game Week 16 onwards. However, above all, the main reason I want to remain flexible, and another reason why I'm reluctant to commit to Ollie Watkins this week, is that next week I may want to replace Raul Jimenez with Cristiano Ronaldo instead. And this will depend heavily on how Son Heung-min performs against Norwich over the weekend. A disappointing performance from Spurs there, and then I may look to downgrade Son and use that money to upgrade Jimenez to Ronaldo for that incredible run of United fixtures which I spoke about already. So that's all my transfer thoughts heading into this weekend, and as much as I'd like to punt on Ollie Watkins as a differential, I may want to keep that door open for CR7 next week. For the captaincy, it's the same old story really, where Son does come into my thoughts, especially with a home fixture against Norwich, but Tottenham in general simply haven't shown enough in their performances to warrant it. Norwich aren't shipping goals as much since Dean Smith took charge either, and simply put, the Egyptian king Mo Salah is just on another planet right now. Salah's form is so exceptional, so ridiculously good, that we're now talking about a player that 5 million people are captaining every game week. In simple terms, it's just such a big risk to hand the armband to anyone else, and simultaneously, it's also hard to find the justification to do so, with only one blank from Mo now in 14 weeks. In fantasy terms, that is truly sensational. Liverpool are away to Wolves this game week, which on paper is never a fixture that I particularly like, but about the only justification I can find is that if I do captain a differential like Son, and if by some chance Mo does finally blank, then of course that's one way to seriously jump up the rankings. But as those that experimented again with that last week, for example those that captained Kane or Trent, it can also hugely backfire. I will consider the likes of Son, Trent or Jota this week, but there's a very slim chance of me doing it. So that wraps up my video for Game Week 15. Hopefully you enjoyed it, and if so, please consider getting subscribed. As always, I'll post the final team with transfers and captaincy over on Twitter shortly before the Game Week deadline. Good luck to you all for the upcoming Game Week, FPL responsibly, and I'll catch you all very soon.